Am I excited to be doing this again? No. No, I am not. Filming wrap-ups is my least favorite thing, but I do love watching me a good wrap-up, so is it worth it in the end? Is it? Does anyone care about my opinions? Probably not. Hey, what's up? I'm Allie, and welcome back to my channel. As you can tell, I have not retrieved the memory card that is most likely sitting in Frankie's poop somewhere. So, that is why I am here today, looking probably slightly different than the thumbnail. I can't recreate my look to the T, so here we go. This is my August wrap-up. Let me read you some stats because I like those things. For a total of 9 books in August, I read 491 pages and listened to 46 hours because I have no life, and my average rating for the month was a 4-star. I think this was a really good reading month. I ended up enjoying a lot of things that I was reading. Obviously, the Scallywagathon happened, and I thought that that was probably my most successful readathon in like years. Let's go ahead and get into the things that I read. I am going to have timestamps listed down below for anyone who wants to jump around to see my thoughts and feelings on any specific titles. So, let's get into this. The first thing that I read for the month was Get a Life, Chloe Brown. There has been a ton of hype around this, and honestly, it is so worth it. So worth it. So this follows Chloe Brown, and she has a near-death experience and decides that she needs to get a life. So she makes a list of all these things that she wants to do, including like doing something bad, as well as riding a motorcycle and having meaningless but thoroughly enjoyable sex. So a list of things that she needs to do, but she doesn't feel like she can do them on her own, so she has to enlist the help of Red. Now, Red seems like he's a bad boy, but him and Chloe just like do not seem to get along when they first meet. There's all these kind of witty banter, back and forthness, and it is perfection. I gotta say, I was literally laughing out loud at some of these scenes because sometimes I feel like in these type of like bantery romance, the banter can be a little too much or unrealistic at times, even though I still absolutely enjoy it. This was like the most realistic banter ever. Like, it just seemed so genuine, and it was things that I feel like I could definitely see people that I know saying these things, so it just felt so realistic. And I just genuinely love the characters. Red is given this bad boy type, but he's not really a bad boy, and like you kind of know that. You know that he's a very genuine and caring person, which I felt like was just so much better than just the typical bad boy. So Chloe Brown does suffer from fibromyalgia. I only had 1 cup of coffee today. Fibromyalgia, and this kind of talks about a little bit of the struggles that she has, but it is definitely not the center point of the story. Obviously, the center point is this romance between enemies to lovers, but it does kind of discuss the daily struggles that she feels and how she's afraid people will interpret the things that she is kind of feeling and doing, and she's very in terms with the things that, you know, she deals with, but it's how she thinks other people will perceive it. So there was a lot of other things going on. There were some deeper issues between Red's life as well as Chloe's life, some back history that we get into, and overall it was just a really well-paced story. We get enough of that like steaminess to kind of balance out the seriousness of some of the topics that they talk about. So overall, this was just, in my opinion, just like such a well-rounded and just great experience of a book, of a romance book. I will say, I did see that some people were being surprised that this does have explicit sexual scenes. It is a smutty romance. There is a few scenes that are quite sensual. Apparently there was some surprise going on for that, so if that is something that you feel uncomfy with, it is in here. But overall, I do think that, you know, if you had a heads up ahead of time, the story does not depend on those scenes, so you could definitely read the rest of the story without those scenes and just get as much out of it. This was a 5 out of 5 stars for me. Overall, just probably one of the best romance stories that I have ever read. Set you there! Then I got into a middle grade kick. I'm still in a middle grade kick. Some of the adult is heavier that I'm reading that I'm focusing on, so I wanted something to balance, you know, all that out. So middle grade. The thing is, middle grade hits hard. Middle grade hits harder than like most of the YA books that I read. Middle grade is not afraid to go there. It's Amal Unbound, and this is about a girl in a Pakistani village, and she talks about what it's like growing up with her family and how she has a large family, and since she is the oldest, sometimes she has to give up the things that she wants to do in order to help take care of her family. Like, she really wants to be a teacher, but she has to stay home from school sometimes. So she's kind of getting frustrated with the way things kind of work in her town, and she ends up insulting one of the most important figures in the town, and as punishment and as payment for her crimes, she has to go and become a servant in his household. So she talks about kind of the unfairness of this life. It's also about like her family struggles and the struggles of this town and how this man has so much power. And then it is about kind of the dark side of this man's power and how he can do these things that he does, and how she is, even at a young age, questioning all these things. There is this feeling of uplifting and hope throughout the book, but it is a very serious book for the most part. It is a quick read. I was quite engrossed in the story. You know, I wanted to know what was going to happen with Amal and her family and how things were going to work out. And it's not necessarily a happy story. So it is a very important story. I love the writing, the pacing, all of that was really well done. This a 5 out of 5 stars. A definite must read in the middle grade genre. I read a lot of middle grade, and I don't really talk about recommendations because I feel like I just read the best of the best middle grade, apparently, because I enjoy all of them. So the next thing is Ghost Squad, and this follows a young girl. Her and her father live in a house. Nope, let's not start with that. Of course they live in a house, Allie. So this follows a girl, and she can see the ghosts of her past family members. And something strange starts happening to her ghost family, and her grandma's ghost is like attacked, and she needs to get to the bottom of it. So she enlists the help of her best friend and her best friend's grandma, Babette, who is a witch. And Babette is my favorite character of all time. I think. I love her. I love grandmas in books anyway, but I love Babette. She is sassy and she's funny and she's fun, but she also is very encouraging to these girls and believes that they are powerful and believes that, you know, they can do these things, but they still have limits. Like, she's just such a great figure. Okay, anyway. So, anyway, they find out that there are these kind of spirits threatening to kind of overtake the ghosts that are the good ghosts, essentially, and overtake the town. So they have to get to the bottom of who is doing it and what's going to happen, and also save the town, along with some other family issues going on. This does talk a little bit about her Dominican heritage. It talks about how her mother has kind of left them, and it deals with kind of the stigmas that were around some of the witches and things like that in history and their myths and whatnot. So it was just a really fun book. It wasn't super serious. I mean, at times it could definitely be scary, but it was just such a fun book. I love the adventures that they got into and the things that they did, and it was fun to see how they came to the conclusions of things as kids do, and how they were being brave and going into these scary places in order to solve this mystery and save her ghost family. And I love the ghosts. They all had such an unique personalities, and they all had back histories, and it was so fun learning about them as well. This is a great Halloween time read. I would highly recommend this. It is a really quick read. It's really fun. I love the kind of found family aspect of it, and it's so cute. There were some plot holes I felt like throughout the story, with just some of the kind of mystery going on and how they kind of jump to conclusions at times, and just there's some things that are brought into the story that aren't ever resolved, which, you know, is fine, but it just leaves you wondering like why they were mentioned at times. So I ended up giving this a 4 out of 5 stars, but it is a really, really enjoyable and fun read, and if you have room on your Halloween October TBR, add this to it because it's so cute. Then we get into some of my Scallywagathon books, and the first thing that I read excuse me. The thing that I ended up reading was the Jumbies. This is also middle grade, and I would consider this probably more on the horror aspect of middle grade. This is based around Caribbean mythology of Jumbies, and Jumbies are basically these creatures that they're up to no good. This follows a young girl and her dad. Why is this a theme? This is just a theme. But this is a young girl. She's not afraid of anything, not even Jumbies. And one day she sees something kind of weird happening in the woods, and she's like, questionable. So she comes home and finds that there is this strange, beautiful woman in her home trying to seduce her father. And she's like, something is up here. So she's trying to get to the bottom of it and save her town from the Jumbies, because now the Jumbies are coming out and things are happening, and she realizes there are darker things ahead. It definitely has a darker tone to it. I really liked the overall feel of the village. You can definitely tell it is a community. Everyone seems to know everybody and look out for everybody, and when that is kind of broken, you feel the effects of it, and you definitely get that feeling as you're reading about it. I love the friendships that are made in this. I love the other characters. It wasn't like this just followed one character. There were several other characters, and I like that we got to see the different outlooks into things from them, because each of them had a different perspective and kind of outlook on the way things worked, and the outlook of Jumbies. We get a little bit of the history of her family, as well as kind of the town a little bit, and how these myths work, and it was just a really interesting and kind of adventureful story. I love the pacing of it. The writing of it was really well done. I definitely feel like this could be a standalone, even though it is part of a series, because I felt things wrapped up pretty nicely in the end. So if you just wanted to read the one, you could, but again, it is I believe an ongoing series. I loved learning about the different myths and the different creatures, and I loved just the friendships that were made, and you do get to see a little bit of these characters kind of struggling with some of the information that they have learned growing up, and kind of making their own opinions as they get older and learning new information. And it's magical at times, and it's all about hope and love. I ended up giving this a 4 out of 5 stars. I talked about this in my Scallywagathon. It wasn't necessarily that there was anything wrong with the book. It was just, felt like it was just missing just a little something for me on an enjoyable scale. So nothing inherently wrong with it, just something. I just felt like I couldn't give it a 5 stars for some reason, so it's a 4 stars for me. I wish I could pinpoint it. It's bothering me that I can't. So then I read Trail of Lightning, and this is an apocalyptic world that is filled full of these Navajo myths and legends that have basically come to life. This follows Maggie, and she is a monster slayer, and she comes across a monster that she can tell has been made by someone. She has a really hard time killing it. She's like, I gotta figure out what the hickety heck is happening here, and I don't want no more of these monsters running around, basically. So she ends up pairing up with a medicine man, and they go in search of who has kind of created these monsters and how they can stop them. One of the main complaints that I really had about this story was that there is a specific story plot that you believe that you are following. However, we follow subplot after subplot after subplot after subplot after subplot before we actually get to the final thing, and all these subplots lead to the final thing, but it was just like a little all over the place at times, I felt. That was probably my only main concern with this book. Other than that, I loved Maggie. She is kick-ass, unapologetic. I think sometimes we think of these characters as not having insecurities, but Maggie has insecurities, and she talks about that. And she talks about the heartache that she has felt and the loneliness that she has felt, and it just made her feel very real, where sometimes I think we see these badass female characters as just having no flaws, and they know it. But she talks about these things, and she's not open about it, but like as a reader, we know about it. So I really enjoyed that, and I love this budding. There is a romance that is taking place in this, and I could see some people saying that it is distracting, but I personally loved it. It's been a while since I feel like I've had a really strong ship in a book. I have it. I have my new strong ship. I'm very worried about it, but I have a strong ship. So there is a slight budding romance in it, but it is about this dark apocalyptic world in like these dark kind of secret and magical currents running through it, and these mythical creatures that are kind of running it. Basically, like, the humans think that they are running it. They're not. There's so many other things at play. It's just got this intricate kind of society, even though the world, we know, like, it's an apocalyptic world. You get a little bit into that, but it's definitely based more around the characters and their interactions and how that affects everyone else. So I love the characters in this. They're all very differing from one another. You definitely become attached to them pretty quickly. I think the author does a really good job at just giving them such great, strong characteristics and making them their own person very early on. Sometimes I feel like there are authors who take a long time to get to that point, but you basically love these characters as soon as you meet them, and there's just all kinds of just fun, unexpected things happening in this. I never knew what to expect at any given time, and I loved the mixture of just like the Navajo cultures and society mixed in, and learning a little bit more about that. It prompted me to do a little bit more of my own research, and I just really, really enjoy this. I'm super excited to get to the second one. I've already checked it out of the library because I just gotta know what happens. This ends on quite the twist, my friends, and I was like, oh! So, there's a lot of crazy shit that happens. So, there were complaints that I saw in reviews that I was reading that this has gore in it, and it is an apocalyptic story, and I don't know what apocalyptic stories don't have gore in them. She's also holding like a sword and a gun on the cover. Like, what? What did you think was gonna happen? Did you know what you was getting into? I'm giving this 4.5. It is probably a new favorite of mine. Next, I read Raven the Pirate Princess Volume 8. I had read Volume 7 last month and was quite disappointed in it. It just wasn't full of the action I was expecting, but Volume 8 definitely made up for it. So this is about an all-female pirate crew. It's very sapphic. They are going to get Raven, who is their captain. She has kind of been denied her legacy, and so she's hunting down her brothers in order to take back what is hers. So in this one, some crazy shit goes down. Of course, there are like mythical creatures and stuff that are always trying to stop them. There's always something trying to stop them from reaching their goal. Shit has hit the fan. Shit has hit the fan. And basically, they, yeah, our characters are now split. You don't even know if some of them are alive. This was so redeeming for some of the more lackluster volumes that have come along the way. Sometimes I feel like they get caught up in dealing with a lot of social issues and just talking about feminist issues and being empowering, that they kind of lose sight of the story. They definitely need to find a balance. I felt like this one might have been the closest they've been to it yet. It's just so good. I love these characters. I love this story. So this one was very redeeming. I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. It's still not perfect, but it was better. It was better. I'm looking forward again to the rest of this series. Then we have Daughter of the... Okay. I don't know where you're going. Then we have Daughter of the Siren Queen. This is the second in the Daughter of the Pirate King series. This is about Alosa, who is taken as a prisoner onto a ship, but they don't realize that she has planned that all along because she is looking for the missing piece of a map in order to find this treasure for her father, basically. Of course, other things happen. There is a romance that happens upon the ship, so enemies to lovers, and also some, you know, dark histories are coming out about the surrounding pirate families, as long as her own history and some of the powers she may be hiding. I really enjoyed Daughter of the Pirate King, but this one, I probably could have just stopped there because this one felt like quite a letdown to me. It didn't really stand up as a sequel. I think this could have stood well as a story of its own if it maybe was instead a spin-off following a different character. I like the romance in it, and it's probably the most redeeming parts of this story. And it was very action-packed. There's a lot happening, a lot of... We're not going to do that. There were, I felt a lot of inconsistencies between the first story and this story. Maybe it was just me and my memory, but I even read like a summary before I went into this, and it just, I just had a totally different memory of the first one, apparently, than with this one. And I just didn't feel like this held up as a sequel. It was very forgettable to me. Honestly, it was fine. The writing was fine. The story was fine. I did feel like there were too many characters. I think the author wanted it to have an impact on some of the things that happened at the end, but we didn't get to know enough about the characters because there were so many of them that it just kind of was whatever. So I ended up giving this a 3 out of 5 stars. Again, it's just quite forgettable. There's nothing really bad about it. It just didn't really work as a sequel. Then I read Snow Glass Apples, and this was to finish the Scallywagathon, so I just grabbed the first thing that I could find with a black cover that was really short. And this is a graphic novel, and it is about, it's kind of a Snow White retelling, but it's Snow White as a vampire. And it basically follows the evil stepmother and her point of view as to meeting Snow White and finding out about her condition, and then what she was trying to do in order to keep essentially the kingdom safe, and how that ends up going against her, and basically the story of how people begin to see her as evil. I think the story itself probably could have had a lot of potential, but it just really fell flat. One, everyone's naked all the time, and there are some really uncomfortable scenes that just, I didn't like. Sex is used a lot, I feel like, as coercion? Not coercion. Sex is used a lot to kind of get what you want. And I was really uncomfortable with the amount of nudity within this book, especially because, like what really was the point of it? And the overall story was kind of interesting, but again, and the artwork in this is stunning, absolutely stunning. So many little details. Oh, it's so good. But Snow White really is absent for most of the story, and the parts that you do, there's no in-look into her thoughts or her feelings, and you kind of just don't really understand why it matters. And she doesn't really come off as evil. I don't know, it was just a very weird, there's necrophilia involved in this as well. It was a weird time, friends, and I just personally didn't like it. It made me more uncomfortable than anything. It wasn't enjoyable. I'm giving it a 2.5, mostly just for the artwork and the originality of the story. That was about it. And then the last thing that I read, and I flew through, was A Dream So Dark. This is a sequel to A Blade So Black. This is an Alice in Wonderland inspired type story, but it's set in a more modern world, and this follows Alice. And basically she finds out she can see nightmares, which are these creatures that come from Wonderland. And Hannah comes from Wonderland, and he's like, oh, you can see them? Okay, well, I'm going to teach you now. So she learns to fight these things and go into Wonderland and kind of destroy them. However, in the first one, a figure from the past of Wonderland has come back, and he is threatening her safety. So we deal with that in the first one. It leaves on quite the cliffhanger, and now we're dealing with some of the aftermath of that. This character is still at large, basically, and we get to see more of Wonderland in this one, and I was so excited to see the Wonderland. Alice in Wonderland's retellings never get old to me like other ones do, because Wonderland can be whatever the author wants to make it. And I love some of the nods to like the names and stuff, but other than that, it feels like such a different story, and I love it. This has been like the only series I've been able to continue in like 2 years, and I flew through it. I love that there are, I would say, a love triangle, but at this point it's like a love octagon type thing going on. Like, you can ship everyone with everyone at this point, and I can't wait to see all that happens in the next one with that. So this was action-packed, but it deals enough with kind of more serious issues. It's fun, it's funny, but it's dark at times, and I just really love this story. I ended up giving this one a 4 out of 5 stars. It was a little slow in some places and definitely felt a little dragged out. There were some holy shit moments that I felt, and I was very excited about those. I ended up listening this to basically in one sitting, and it's quite large, but I was determined to find out what the heck happened. So I'm very excited to get to the third and the last one. So I think anyone who doesn't even particularly like fantasy would like these, because There's not a whole lot of world building necessarily. I mean, you kind of have this basic understanding of what Wonderland is. It's a magical place, but it definitely focuses way more on the characters and the character relationships and the complexity of those at times. So I just love this. I love these characters. I love the nods to Wonderland. It's just so good. And indeed am I. Wrap up for the second time now. Yeah, let me know some of the things that you read, or if we've read any of the same things this past month. I hope that you guys have liked this video. Don't forget to subscribe to see future hauls from, not a haul, it's not a haul, wrap ups from me. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!